the New England Patriots. Mac Jones drafted. How does he change the outlook for the offense? Does he change it this year?
Yeah, so that's the question for you, right? Is how are we handling this QB situation? So right now, I'm projecting the Pats to average 219 passing yards per game when Cam's QB and about 242 in Mac Jones is quarterback. So I'm projecting Cam around 9 games started and Mac around 7 games. So I'm projecting this offense to average roughly 230 yards passing a game. So that's going to change as I move Cam and Mac's projected game started up or down. That's sort of like my baseline for this passing offense. So in summary, Mac Jones, I think, is going to help out, the receivers and tight ends significantly. And I think even running backs, because Cam Newton, he hogs up so much of that rushing touchdown upside around the goal line. So technically, Mac Jones is better for fantasy for all players. So this is going to be a camp battle. I'm going to be watching closely, and it's going to impact all my Patriot projections as I tweak these projected games played.
Yeah, and it's so tough right now. I have them about equal, but I'm sure we'll talk about that a little more in a second. I just want to talk about all of the skill position players that you have kind of incoming. You have Nelson Aguilar, you have Kendrick Bourne, you have Hunter Henry, you have Jonnu Smith. Just what did you think of the kind of reshuffling the Patriots did, and who do you think will emerge, if anyone, is like a consistent week-to-week guy at receiver for New England?
Oh, I mean, I hated their offseason moves. I'm glad that they upgraded at nearly every position they had to after last season. So I think whoever starts quarterback is going to benefit from these moves. But, having Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith on the same team, it just kills both of their projections for me. I'm off both. And then especially at wide receiver, like Jacoby Myers, I want to love him heading into the season. But, with Nelson Aguilar there, Kendrick Bourne, it's hard to, sort this out, especially if Cam Newton ends up starting 10 plus games. I'm not going to want many of these guys. So I've been focusing more on the running game as of now until we get a bit more clarity. But it's just hard to like anybody because when you do projections, you kind of see how targets are distributed and where upside might be. And I'm just not seeing it in this offense. I think the additions help whoever ends up playing quarterback this year is basically where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, Henry and Smith tight end 12 and 13. I think that's probably, the best bet. Just if you're looking for any type of, consistency, tight end is harder to find that. And those two guys, it would seem to me by the fact that they have Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, and Jacoby Myers projected to start at wide receiver, it would seem to me that Henry and Smith are going to be the focal points of the offense. Those are the two guys that, if you look at their targets per route run, which is pretty predictive, even when you change teams, because it's just how well you get open. Obviously, other factors come into play too, but those guys are the two guys that lead the way in terms of their career numbers. So I think Henry will be the number one option because he has been targeted on a higher basis per route than Smith. But I think that's your best bet. You have Aguilar at wide receiver 58, and you have Myers and Bourne out of the top 100. Best ball, maybe one of, I think Myers probably is the best value out of those guys just because we've seen him do the 5 catch per game thing, right? Like we've seen him be that number one receiver. And even with Aguilar and Bourne in the mix, I think Myers might still be the number one, or at least the most productive Patriot wide receiver. Cause I think those other two guys are more complementary, and we've seen Myers in a little bit more of a lead role. So yeah, it's tough though. I think I go with Myers as a best ball dart. And then at running back, we had Harris finally come on last year. But you mentioned it's the Patriots. We never really know what they're going to do. Any thoughts on their backfield?
Yeah, this is a mess on the surface. When you do projections, it's really hard to do the Patriots. But I actually like Damian Harris right now at his ADP. He's around the 34, 35 range. That's when you can take gambles. And there's certain paths to upside here where we can get ahead of his ADP going up. Once we get closer to training camp, one of the paths is they trade away Sony Michel. It's certainly possible. But also there's another path here where they announced Mac Jones is the week 1 starter. I think both scenarios, his ADP shoots up into the high 20s. Either way, like even if neither one of those happen, I think he's a fair price at running back 34. So he's a guy I'm just, we're talking about like mid-July best ball drafts. He's a guy I'm just trying to get ahead of potential news where his ADP jumps up. So I like him. And like you said, he finally broke out last year. I think they trust him in sort of that old Sony Michel role. So, hopefully they realize they don't need both Harris and Sony Michel and do something with Michel that it no longer involves him on this roster. Because, like you said, it is very tricky to project this running back. I want to say like trio, but it's more like a quad situation with Moore Stevenson, who they took in the 4th round. He's a guy that could make some noise too. So he's a potential guy to take later in best balls, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, he might have like a Harris rookie year where I just don't know if he gets on the active list all that often, especially if they don't trade Michel, because you're going to have Harris and Michel. You're going to need White for those passing downs, and you may have a special teamer. We'll see if Stevenson fills that role, but they've had 4 backs active in the past. We know they'll use the fullback as well, but you're going to have that second tight end, playing a bigger role, so you may have to keep an extra tight end active. So it's tough with him, but yeah, I like Harris at RB 34 as well. I think he was the number 3 graded PFF back last year. One of the higher rated backs in yards after contact, which is a lot more predictive than yards before contact for a running back. And Harris was up over 3 in that. So I think he's got some upside there and may continue to just be that feature back. Obviously, usurped Michel last year. What's the Patriots prop?
How many games will Mac Jones start? I have it at 7.5 right now.
I'm going over. I do have it at 8.5. So I just have him and Cam equal. I just really, at this point, don't think we know, but given Cam Newton's age, given how poorly he performed against, tougher competition last year, and given what the Patriots spent draft capital wise on Mac Jones, even though they obviously got a good, value for him, considering where he was projected to go initially to the 49ers, I still think Cam is on really thin ice. And I think it was an obvious need for an upgrade, with him. And I think all the moves that they made were not to kind of help Cam Newton. It was to kind of transition this offense back to what they were doing with Tom Brady, a more Mac Jones-like quarterback in terms of style, in the early 2010s. So I'm going 8.5, but that'll probably rise. I think Cam could start the year. I just don't think he finishes it either because of health or performance reasons.